thought in a million years the ghost would be able to extract stuff.
Hostile is hit! Hostile is hit! Repeat, hostile is hit! Cover me, I'm reloading!
buddies do anything to provoke it?
No. They were just minding their own business, just taking out the damn trash, for Pete's sake. I mean, it's mortifying to live in fear of these drones.
Your friends aren't back yet?
No. Last time I saw them, they wandered off into the woods. They seemed pretty sloshed.
What's taking them so long? I just figured they were trying to stop out.
Hello. I'm not gonna hurt you.
You ever think you'd be a freedom fighter?
Have any information on where I can find this weapon attachment?
Let me tell you about this one place I know.
I appreciate it. Goodbye. Ask and ye shall receive.
I hope you weren't too inconvenienced.
Not at all. Just another day in the brute squad.
Really, this is... Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, it was practically gift wrapped.
That's fitting.
Yeah. So what's his name? Your source.
Her. Sigrid. I just hope she can steer clear of the blowback this'll cause.
She knew the risks, so she must have been prepared. She must have felt it was worth it.
You're all right, Brute Squad. Thanks.
I'll be around.
You ever think you'd be fighting in a guerrilla war?
We gonna make it out of this?
How can I help you today?
Revolution, Brute Squad. Don't tell me you've never caused one. It was the #2 turn-on in Uniform Chaser magazine.
Some soldier boy break your heart?
So many assumptions, so little time. Point is, we could use some help on the front lines.
You're not soldiers, Haruhi.
Well, the cavalry's not coming. We're what you've got. Now, Sentinel's got a new drone prototype that's keeping us up at night, and it's about to enter a new phase of testing.
Enough said. I'll intercept the transport detail and make sure it never gets where it's going.
Is how you thought things would turn out for you?
No, they were just minding their own business. Just taking out the damn trash, for Pete's sake. I mean, it's mortifying.
So Project Deus. That sounds ominous. What can you tell me?
Look, I'd really prefer not to talk about it.
I get that you're not a fan, but why all this? A rebellion over a rich guy's pet project. It doesn't track.
What's there to track? Apparently, during their giant asshole convention, the meatheads at Skeltec came up with a way to cheat death. Project Deus is their elitist method of transferring the minds of the richest 0.1% into computers. It's not hard to figure out where that leaves the rest of us. So excuse me if I'm a little pissed off.
Jesus. Surviving death by living on as a machine doesn't sound much like surviving to me.
Me either. It's in the name, Brute Squad. Project Deus isn't about cheating the god of death, it's about becoming him. For these people, it means absolute power. That's what the outcasts are fighting against.
Your people look like they're barely holding it together.
What, you mean these nerd farmers aren't ready for Brute Squad boot camp? It was hard enough turning these pocket-protecting 4-H'ers onto vandalism, but infiltration and sabotage? It's a goddamn miracle that we've survived this long. But we're not fooling ourselves. We know at the end of the day, we're just standing with our fingers in a dike.
Yeah, well, the tide's coming in. Surviving off the grid is one thing, but if you don't start punching above your weight, you're gonna get slaughtered. If you don't think your lot's up for that, best thing would be to scatter to the wind.
If not us, then who?
Let me ask you something. Why South Cape Station? Liberty's right next door, and it wouldn't take much for Sentinels to surround you and cut you off from everything.
It's rare that outcast cells stay put more than a few days. Nature of the beast, I guess. With this place, we were just looking for something more permanent where we could stockpile supplies and safeguard assets. The landfill keeps away Sentinel and Skeller tourists from the capital. We're right near to our fields of operation and close enough to Sentinel that we won't show up on radar. As far as security's concerned, the creek does a decent job of keeping us hidden, and looking out at the cabins is a bonus.
How does Sentinel Corp take control of Aroa?
Skell hired them to deal with us initially once he realized that he had some resistance against transhumanism, his own private militia. They started making arrests, so a few of us went to ground and our sympathizers followed, thinking they'd leave us alone once we were outside of the cities.
But they didn't.
Stone got permission to operate outside Liberty and Infinity, and Skell let him set up shop in the Cold War installations to patrol the wild. Once they got there, they did just enough to keep us at bay, while using us as cover to bring in men and vehicles, which he hid from Skell in some underground bunkers, which of course are now called Camp Ferret and Camp Weasel.
Son of a bitch has a sense of humor.
We were watching the whole thing happen. And when they grew strong enough, they took over. They literally came up out of the ground. Skell had no idea what hit him.
If I was looking for a fight, where should I go?
With Sentinel Corp, you that hard up?
Trigger finger needs its exercise.
Well, Sentinel patrols the city centers and industrial complexes pretty heavily, though there's always civilians around, so I'd keep away from those if you can help it. Then there's the settlements they built when they first got here, in the southwest and northeast, where they keep their reserve garrison and store resources.
That sounds like more fun than anybody should be allowed to have.
If you're looking for more of a skirmish, you could check out one of Oroa's many Cold War-era bunkers left courtesy of Uncle Sam. They also set up some transportable structures and took over some Skell architecture. Basically, if you see a green storage container-looking thing, Sentinel's probably nearby. Of course, if you don't feel like looking that hard, they patrol most of the island 24/7, so you could just pick a spot and wait.
How do the outcasts manage to sustain themselves out here?
Barely. None of us have the skills or equipment to farm or fish. Even if we did, it'd bring us a boatload of attention that we couldn't afford. Once in a while, a civilian will leave some food at a dead drop, but it's risky and never much. Best bet's always to steal from farms and raid Sentinel supplies, but of course they're protected. Then there's still the matter of getting the supplies out to as many cells as possible while avoiding detection.
Nobody thinks about food at first. That's why so many groups who call themselves revolutionaries end up as bandits. Even if you don't think it's possible now, you'll want to be careful you don't drift that way. Are you at all worried about the increased traffic around the industrial facility near here? Being that your HQ is so close, I mean.
The only human within miles is a skeleton crew of Sentinel rejects who probably got transferred there as a punishment and bitch all day about finding a detail with more action. Not the sharpest bunch. And just like everybody else, they're convinced there's nothing interesting on Windy Islands. So we let them believe that. We can travel back and forth on those barges day in and day out, and the only thing that follows us is a stink.
Can you tell me why Sentinel's got a prison set up in the survival shelter complex?
Nope, never been. Never planned to either, but I've heard about it. Given Skell's vision, it doesn't seem too far-fetched. An illegal prison in a remote fortress, on top of a mountain, surrounded by ice and snow where no one in their right mind would go looking? No offense.
None taken. But the size of the place, it's insane. It looked like you could fit a row's whole population in there.
I can't see a scenario where Sentinel would use all the space, but clearly they were thinking big, which gives one pause.
Well, I retired Herzog, who was running the place, but I'm sure that's not going to do anyone any good. We'll just have to see. Did you know anything about Madeira's husband being kept in the cryo chambers in eternity?
I knew he had ALS, of course, and how difficult it was for Paula when he went into a coma 5 years back. Hate to say it like this, but it seemed to me that Paula had moved on. I was surprised as shit when I heard he was still alive.
Even Skell's got his good points.
Hitler liked art.
Really? Hitler?
Skell was playing God. Just because he helped out a friend one time doesn't make him any less dangerous. Almost glad he never found a cure. He'd have had Madeira forever, not to mention something to sell for a fortune. You want to work with Skell? I can't stop you. But you'd better make sure you're using him and not the other way around.
Haruhi, bringing down Walker, Sentinel, and the drone swarm is in everyone's best interest, especially Skell. And in case you haven't noticed, we're all outmatched and that gap ain't closing anytime soon. Best thing to do is to come together. At least Skell seems to get that.
Whatever. You're gonna do what you want to do, so he's your problem. But don't let him become mine. If he ever compromises the outcasts, even you won't be able to protect him from me.
How do you manage to keep so many combat supplies for the rebellion?
Well, Sentinel keeps a close eye on frags, C4, and landmines, so they're an unholy bitch to get. Most of our explosives are homemade from flashbangs or diversion grenades we find hanging around security facilities. If you want the good stuff, you're gonna have to raid Sentinel outposts. With any luck, you might be able to find a stash in the Cold War installations, but even those tend to have a Sentinel infestation problem.
Well, in the past life, I was an exterminator. Any advice for fighting in World 2.0?
The name of the game is take out their drones faster than they can launch them. It's a bitch, but that's why we always carry jammers that'll shut off any live drone or vehicle happening by. At least for a while. Another option would be to make your peace with the devil and use sync-shot drones to take out specific targets.
Sync-shot drones?
They only target humans, though. They can't target drones. There's also a variation on the Legion drone, the ones in the drone swarm. They're like little flying guns that basically take aim in any direction and wait for a signal to execute their target.
Got any lying around?
No can do. We mostly leave those things alone. Kind of goes against what we're trying to be.
Sounds like just another weapon to me.
If you're inclined, you can get them hot out of the oven from Skell-Tech labs or assembly lines. Hell, even some startups might have them. And come to think of it, the Omega Center ought to have plenty.
See you later, Haruhi.
Not if I see you first, Brute Squad.
Is this how you imagined it? Would you have thought back at scale orientation, we'd end up here?
How are you doing with all this?